Welcome everyone to the first Heritage Advisory Committee meeting. I was going to start off just by thanking everyone, particularly the members of the committee for putting your names forward and dedicating your time to the town. Just to introduce each other, why don't we go around the table and let everyone know, particularly the members of the committee, but the public as well. Welcome to let us know who you are. We start over here.
My name is Cynthia Bedio, and I'm a new member of the committee. So I'm looking forward to learning and listening and observing and seeing how this all works.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm Bob McRoberts. I've been around long enough to be labeled an honorary member. So I'm excited about the new term.
Linda, or
I'm Linda Bottas, Council Committee Coordinator for Legislative Services. Glad to be with you. It's fortune.
I'm Adam Robb from the Planning and Development Services Department. I'm a planner with the town. I'm the staff liaison to this committee.
My name is John Green. I was a member of the committee as a member of the Aurora Historical Society, and now I'm taking on a new 2-year membership with the community.
David Hurd, I too was on the committee 2010 through 2014. Now this 2-year term, and those know me, I'm quite passionate about heritage in Aurora.
Marcello Polsani, I'm an applicant for 28 Wells.
welcome.
My name is Paul Overs. I'm a heritage consultant for my clients here. And I also, some years ago, was the co-author of the Northeast Old Aurora Heritage Conservation District.
My name is Noah
Welcome.
Brown. My name is Ben Brown and I like puzzles.
Welcome.
I'm Matthew and this is my wife Joanne Brown. We're here with Peter.
Peter Hiller is my name. I'm the president and CEO of Grayfield Construction, and I'm here on behalf of my clients, the Browns. Thank you.
And online. What do we go with Kevin? And
Hey everyone, my name is Kevin Hughes. This is my first time on the Aurora Heritage Committee. As a member of the committee, so I'm looking forward to what I can contribute as well. Thanks for having me.
thank you. And Jeff.
Hey everyone, Jeff Lancier. I was a member of the Heritage Advisory Committee during the last term. I currently reside in the Northeast Heritage Conservation District and looking forward to working with all of you again for another few years.
Thank you. And I see Ron, but I don't know if is that Councillor Weiss? Oh, we'll move on. Okay. Welcome everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Monday, May 1st, 2023. Our first order of business is to appoint a committee vice chair. Nominations are open for the position of vice chair for the Heritage Advisory Committee for a 2-year term, 2023 to 2024. Are there any nominations?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Jeff Lanthier if he would be interested.
Jeff, are you interested?
Sure. I'm happy to act as vice chair. Thank you, Bob.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, nominations are closed. Could I get a motion and a seconder to approve Jeff as the Heritage Advisory Committee Vice Chair for 2023-2024?
I so move.
John, second. Bob, all those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Congratulations.
Grab those lines.
I'll go through the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territories of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nations community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have on the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississauga and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as Williams Treaty of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today. Will help us walk together into a better future. Can I get a motion, a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as put forward? David? Bob? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. There are no, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have no minutes, we have no delegations, and we have two matters before us. The first one is a memorandum from the senior planner, Heritage Permit Application File HPA 2023-04, 19 Catherine Avenue. First, we will have a presentation from, do we have Jonathan Wong?
No, I'll be standing in for
Okay.
Jonathan today.
Peter,
Yes,
the floor is yours and you have 10 minutes.
thank you very much.
Welcome.
So in a nutshell, we're planning on building a two-story addition to 19 Catherine Avenue in such a way that it is not completely obvious from the street. We've done everything we can to preserve the look of the building, the century home that is there. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe somebody can throw there we are. I'll maybe walk up to the board here and help you understand this.
Maybe grab a microphone and just hold. so
Sure,
they
yeah.
can hear you.
Great idea. So the two upper photos, certainly the one in the upper left-hand side shows the house as it stands now. And if we look at the rendering on the right-hand side, it shows the house and you can see the addition in behind. Now, there's currently a bit of addition there now. We've taken a lot of steps to make sure that the addition is not really too visible from the street, so that, again, the intent, of course, is to preserve the natural look of the house. This photo here very much depicts what is there currently today. And if you look at the renderings here, you can see where we've developed the space for the addition, more particularly here. And if you look at this angle looking sort of southwest, you can see part of the addition in the back. This is what the addition looks like at the rear yard. We've kept the roof line below the existing roof line. So again, there's no impact from the street side. We want to keep it fairly compact, but we want to make use of the space as best we can to maximize the amount of GFA that's available to my client. Again, we've chosen colors to be in keeping with the original color scheme. Finishes, again, to mimic the original finishes that were around when the house was originally built. Again, attention to detail to make sure that we preserve the look, which is very important to us. And we certainly respect that from a heritage standpoint. So this is what we're trying to do. I'm hoping that this is in keeping with the heritage. Far away.
How big does it increase the footprint on the lot?
So there is an addition on there now, which is coming off, which is roughly 20 by 30. And we're adding about 38 by about 40 roughly, or less. So we're sort of doubling the space, if you like, on the back. And of course, part of the process is to fix a lot of the space issues that are in the house currently, because it's a bit of a rabbit's warren in terms of staircases and whatnot. But again, the intent is to preserve the look.
Can I just before we have any questions, maybe just if you finish your presentation, and we'll put the motion on the floor and we'll get anybody to ask you questions if you're done.
I think I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
Thank you.
let's get the motion on the floor and then we can open up for discussion. So what's before us is that the memorandum regarding Heritage Pyramid application HPA 2023-04, 19 Catherine Avenue be received. And the Heritage Advisory Committee comments regarding Heritage Permit application HPA 2023-04, 19 Catherine Avenue be received and referred to staff for consideration and future action as appropriate. Can I get a motion to put that on the floor? We got Jeff. Is there a second for that? Remember, John. I should remember. Any comments or questions to other staff or delegate? Jeff?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Maybe if I could just have staff provide a quick overview. I did review the recommendation in the document, but I always find it helpful if Adam can provide a perspective on this and his thoughts.
Yes, certainly. And with you, Mr. Chair. So as the consultant mentioned, this is a rear addition. The biggest considerations through the attached memorandum was in regards to the west elevation balcony component for the committee's review, the location of the chimney, and then the generality of the massing and materiality. And I would say that is in order of significance. There aren't too many concerns in terms of this being a rear addition. A lot of effort has been made to respect the compatibility and sympathetic nature of the proposal, but specifically that west elevation balcony was a highlight that we wanted the committee's feedback on.
Jeff?
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Oh,
Just as a comment, there are quite a number of houses on that street that have rear additions. Given that the existing facade of the property is to remain unaltered, and this addition is at the rear, I don't have any issues.
Any other comments, John?
Yes, what kind of feedback, if any, have you had from neighbors?
I'm going to defer that for just a moment to my client, only because she has taken steps to circulate drawings and canvass her neighbors. So Joanne, you might be able to comment on that.
The feedback we have received so far has been positive. Many of our neighbors have already either done additions as well or are in the process of doing one. We didn't hear anything negative. People who have had it done are very grateful that they went ahead and did it and helped preserve their house. And as we move these old houses forward, there are things we need to do with them to keep them going. And yeah, it seems okay. They seem okay.
Supportive.
Supportive,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. It's an easy one. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So I think we'll excuse ourselves.
Yes. Oh, you could stay for the next one, but
We'd love,
We're gonna do some puzzle.
we'd love. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
The next item is 7.2 memorandum from senior planner request to remove 28 Wells Street from the Aurora Registry of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest. We have here Paul Oberst. You have a presentation.
Yeah.
You have 10 minutes. The floor is yours. If you could just, grab a mic.
Do I push a button or?
No, just speak into it.
I've made this presentation. I don't know how much is going to be useful to you. You may want it. If you want me to skip ahead, just say so. I've put this up because it's It shows the streets were laid out when they originally laid out a plan of subdivision in 1852. The lots are not the same as they were on this, but the streets are. It took a long time for this area to be built, just as Northeast Old Aurora, the same thing happened. They laid out a couple of streets, they built a few houses. Economics turned down, then later economics picked up and they did another street or two. So this is the situation in this area as well. 28 Wells was built about 70 years after this survey was filed. Next, please. This is showing some of the houses on the street, and you'll see quite a bit of stylistic differences, and that's a reflection of the fact that they were built over a long period of time. The top row is all houses on the opposite side of the street. The one on the left is an indeterminate era. It could be quite early, or it could be like the 1930s as a colonial revival. Those dormers that stick up through the roof instead of sitting on top of the roof. That's a detail that's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but not in Canada until, not common in Canada until the 30s when they did colonial revival style. The bungalow, the next one's a bungalow, the next one's a Georgian, not a Georgian, a Edwardian, very much like 28 Wells. The last one is a Victorian Gothic, and I've taken a picture down here to show it, and that's maybe 1880. So the Edwardian is like ours, it's 1920. The arts and crafts are 1920. And our house is the very last one in the bottom row that you can just see the side of. And the intervening house is a relatively new, I don't know the exact date, but it's within the last few years, an enormous bungalow. It goes back so far, it's almost unbelievable. Next, please. Particularly for the people who are new on the committee, I don't know how much you've been, education you've been given about Ontario Regulation 906. So I wanted to put something in about that. And the town, in preparation for Bill 23, which is upset the apple cart in heritage in the province, has done this thing where they've evaluated all the properties that were on the list. And you can see that they've used 906, and you can see over here is general, the integrity of the building is fair, the condition is fair. There's a picture of the house. The total estimate of its value says moderate value. And the O regulation, it shows lots of things are no, they don't meet one of the requirements, one of the criteria. One that it meets is representative, which is in the design and physical value section of the regulation. Nothing in historical and associative value, and contextual value that it supports the character of the area. So it's evaluated as meeting 2 of the 9 criteria and having a moderate overall value. And I've said, I generally agree with this evaluation, but I say terms and conditions apply, as all the advertisements say, and we'll get to that a little later. Next slide. This is just of the house. This is looking at it. I get mixed up about north and south here. This is from the front left, and this is from the front right. That's the back. There's a falling down garage. And you can see in the top left picture, you can see an addition on the back sticking off into the side yard, which is this piece when you're in the backyard. Next, please. I just do a tour inside the house. First is the front porch looking south, north. Going inside, front door is a stairwell. Then I'm going through the living room, which has a couple of nice windows. The dining room maybe had something like that once, but it no longer does. The kitchen is kind of torn up, halfway renovated or on the way to being renovated or something. Next one, please. This is the top two pictures, first top two pictures. Those are in the rear addition. And the one, the left one that's maybe original or shortly after the house was built. And this is the new one. That's the thing that sticks out into the side yard. You're looking out the backyard in that picture through the window. Then the rest of the other three are 3 bedrooms upstairs, 1, 2, 3, and the bathroom upstairs, which I kind of like pink, but it's a bit outdated. Okay, next picture. This is in the basement, stairs going down. This is a room which is under renovation, but not completed. You can see they put some kind of a subfloor down, and I don't know what's going on there. And this is a room that hasn't had any real work done to it except installing a modern electrical panel. Next, please. Okay, so these are the terms and conditions I'm talking about where I don't entirely, right? I'm trying to elaborate a bit on the condition and the value of the house. So in the town's evaluation, the house has fair integrity and it is in fair condition. It has moderate, less than good heritage value. The italic bold stuff is my comment. The house meets only one of the items listed under each of criteria 1 and 7 of O Regulation 906. It is a representative example of an Edwardian style house, neither rare, unique, nor early. Those are the other sub criteria that go under design and physical. And it supports the character of the area, but does not define or maintain it. The items in each of those cases are the weakest under their criteria. Under design or physical value, just about any building is a representative example of something. I've never understood why they put that criteria in there. I mean, a house can be a representative example of a horrible builder's monster home, suburban monster home, and it, you know, everything is a representative of what they are. Supporting the character of the area is the bronze medal of the 3 sub-criteria. Okay, next, please. So the ministry, these are my conclusions. The ministry offers the following advice on applying OREG 906 and its Heritage Toolkit, volume titled Heritage Property Evaluation. Individual properties being considered for protection under Section 29, that's the section of the Act about designating, must undergo a more rigorous evaluation than is required for listing. The regulation, Ontario Regulation 906, is not a mandate. It doesn't say if you meet 2 of these criteria. It used to be only 1, which is why the representative drove me crazy. But it's a minimal criteria. It's not sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. So the verb in the first clause is may be designated, not must be or even should. So based on the criteria, right. Based on the criteria in the regulation, the ministry's advice just shown above, and my experience in cultural heritage work, it is my professional opinion that the property at 28 Wells Street does not rise to the standard that would merit designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. In view of Bill 23, I believe it should be removed from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value and Interest. And what I mean by in view of Bill 23 is it's extremely unlikely that it will be designated and it will have to be removed anyway by the terms of Bill 23. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, wait, there's one more picture. My clients have worked with a wonderful architect who I've worked with before and have come up with the idea of what they want to do for this property. Remove the existing building, which is why we want to delist it, and produce this thing, which is a pair of semi-detached houses, which are very cleverly go over the driveways so that there's no garage visible from the street, therefore keeping the general thing all in keeping with the neighborhood. And you can see that it's not really out of scale with anything that's there. So I think I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we get a move in our seconder to put the item on the floor? And that's one, that the memorandum regarding request to remove 28 Wells Street from the Aurora Registry of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest be received, and that the Heritage Advisory Committee comments regarding the request to remove 28 Wells Street from the Aurora Register of Properties of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. I get a mover in a second. Put that on the floor. David. Bob. And Adam, do you want to summarize?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can supplement the presentation. I do have to generally agree with what was presented. I think this property in the era of Bill 23 it's tough, right? Because Bill 23 has changed the landscape that we're working in. I do think this property has heritage value, but it's a matter of the test that's been established under the new parameters of the province. If an appeal were to be launched on this property, I quite frankly do not know if it would pass that test at the OLT, especially with the supportive consultants report as well. And that's just the honest truth. I do think there is heritage value in this property, but it is tough in this new era of Bill 23. And just for additional input too, we had the consultant or staff had the consultant prepare that rendering of a proposal information for the committee. That obviously is a step in the future. We're dealing with the delisting today. That is first and foremost. It's just a matter of presenting to the committee a commitment to, urban design. And should that process unfold, we can certainly seek additional input from the committee when that time comes and through staff reviews.
Thank you. Just Jeff and Kevin, can you hear us okay? Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, John?
Yes, looking at the picture that was shown of the actual photograph and the 9 points that have to be addressed, and you say only 2 of them met the criteria. So I know when these houses were designated, and there was a lot of time spent reviewing this with a well-informed team. There were 3 groups. There was like, we've got to leave these on the register. There was a middle group, and there was another one, the 3rd group that said, these are under consideration that maybe we should remove them, but don't know. So what group was that in, do you know?
I think it's the middle group.
Middle group?
You're correct. So,
Yes.
through Mr. Chair, the first priority group prioritized to designation was 30
Yes.
properties. That process is unfolding. You're correct too, with 57 removals occurring, and this
Yes.
would be part of the bulk of properties in that middle to remain listed category.
Okay. So at the time, it was recommended that they remain listed.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I just ask questions again as a complete rookie? I don't know, can you hear me on the mic okay? Okay. There. Like, who are they historical figures that are relevant to commemorate in the town of Aurora? Do we know that information?
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, the 9 criteria under Ontario Regulation 906, through the knowledge of the property, it is meriting heritage value based on mostly its architectural significance, its supporting of the character area, and being a representative example of the Edwardian style. If there's additional information, I don't believe the consultant has uncovered additional information either, but it is not to our knowledge.
Can I?
Yeah.
Like the 9 criteria in 3 groups, each having 3 subgroups. And the middle group has to do with associative value, that is to say, is it have an association or I forget what the term is, render information about a person, an event, it's a whole pile of things, right? But and there's nothing in that second group. It's only the one thing in group 1, which is about physical design, and that is the what was the one? Yeah, there was a representative of the style. of which there are northeast of Aurora, which follows those. So it's not like we're forget about something that's the only one, you know. And the last group has to do with associate, has to do with contextual value, which has to do with how does it fit in with the neighborhood? Does it help to define the neighborhood character and those sorts of things? So, and it's only one of those, and there's a hierarchy in those three things, and it's almost the lowest one, right? So I think it doesn't. They used to use a numerical score for I think for figuring out how to designate.
Your mic.
There used to be a numerical scorecard that they used when we were doing the Heritage District. Mike Seaman was the planner working on that stuff, and he showed it to us. We did an inventory showing every property with Phil and I, that we always do that, but whether it's a heritage property or not, we want to just have a benchmark that shows every single property within the district. So that, you know, you can come back 10 years later and you'll see what the changes have been made, right? In the case of our district, Northeast Old Aurora, what came down Young Street and was like, whoa, the church, like the old church is not the same. So, but everything else looks really good. I have to say, it looks good.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have half a dozen questions or comments. Hi, Paul. On page 2 of 5 in the report, or 13 of 48 in the agenda, it says the request is to remove what's there, and a desire the owners indicated as a desire to pursue one set of semi-detached units. What's one set of semi-detached units?
It's a pair of semi-detached houses.
So one house.
One building with two properties. A property will be severed.
Okay.
And of course, all of that will be subject to various approvals.
Okay. I know there was a very aggressive cat that was a former owner of the property, used to pick on all sorts of my beagle as we would walk past. On page 4 of 5, it says in bold, in 2022, the town retained MHBC planning to conduct a heritage register review, and 28 Wells was not recommended to be prioritized for designation. And that's not wrong. But I did write down a quote at one of the 8 subcommittee meetings that were held. And this is something that the consultant, Vanessa Hicks, who is a former heritage planner with the town of Aurora, said, the properties that remain on the list are all worthy of designation, but there's no rush. In that timing can't, given the timing, you can't practically designate all of them at once. So it caught my attention enough for me to write down that those properties that remain on the list are all worthy of designation. And the reason they were not all designated and only 30 were chosen, because there was not a rush. And that to designate 300 plus properties all at once might overwhelm. At the same time, I would point out that we apparently have 287 properties remaining on the Heritage Register that I hope we will be dealing with this term. Pardon me while I flip. Cynthia's just asked about former families, and yes, I would agree that it's part of the criteria. As a member of this committee last term and a number of previous terms, we have used a numerical evaluation of properties that was designed in about 2006, 2007. So it's dated. The consultants were working with the new regulations and gave committee members a very quick lesson. Went through a couple of examples, but I think, and I'm off topic a little bit speaking to this item specifically, but I think our committee would benefit from a lesson in how to use the evaluation. I'm understanding that only 2 of the 9 need to be met and 2 of the 9 have been met in terms of designating. But Cynthia asked about former owners of the property, and I don't see that in our report, and I don't see it in the consultant's report. I'm not going to assume that that means that former owners were of no significance, although the consultants put the word no beside something that I can't see fast enough. Historical associative value, none. Who's to say? I would like, and I would draw this as, since we're not able to make a recommendation, we're only able to make a comment from this committee to council, but I would hope that council would be made known of who the previous owners were. Maybe 3 of them were mayors of the town. I don't know who lived there. I do know who lived in some of the properties, but I don't know other than the aggressive cat. I don't know. So maybe it is that there is no previous owner or family of significance, but without knowing who those families are, I would like people at this table or at the council table to make that determination rather than a consultant in Kitchener. And so that's where that comment was, who has judged their significance. And when I was reading the report, looking at the proposal, although I guess we're not supposed to judge that at this time based on what I've just heard, but I would point out that on the south side of this house is a ferociously big house that I did not walk on private property to measure, but I would, in my mind, it's got to be more than 35% of the property, its footprint. And I'm seeing in the rendering that the proposal here is bigger than that, or at least taller than that. The house on the north side, that's something else. It's not been in good shape for a long time, and the siding on the house, I believe, is hiding a number of secrets. I do have one more if I could find it. It just flashed into my mind and flashed out while I was babbling. Mr. Chair, if you want to go on, maybe it'll come back to me. Thank you.
Any other comments?
want to.
Just one second, I just want to see. Jeff, look up.
Nope.
Criteria and that's two criteria. Doesn't really matter. That's a minimum requirement in order to designate, it doesn't say. Got two, you should. Doesn't say you must do the things. Don't have at least this. Not a mandate, it's
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And in that vein, that maybe this committee would benefit from some exact wording and some samples on how to evaluate with the new criteria. I was surprised. I'm less surprised, I guess, seeing who's with us this evening. But when I was reading page 20 of 48 on our agenda, Paul is saying that he was engaged by the owner, Maple Leaf Lands and Development. So it's not a family that would be moving in. It's a company taking over, and I guess they're looking to maximize profits by making it a semi. Given what's before us, I do not support removing this property from the list.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, to the consultant and the owners. Prior to what we saw, the renderings there, was there any consideration to incorporate the existing building and a build on the rear before, making the decision?
not my department, I would decide.
As I said, the owners of the property, was there any consideration?
We've gone back and forth with our architect, and the house is in extremely poor condition. And the point where I don't know how anybody could actually live in it. In its state, was used as a grow up. I don't think how it can be preserved. The consideration was to not maximize the profit, provide housing for our needs, housing. And this is what made us move to, instead of adding it on and making it a rental triplex, fourplex, which is not well received by community at all. We decided to build 2 new units and keep it. Criteria was to keep the new build something you'll be talking about in 100 years from now, and definitely you'll be keeping it. That's the idea. The neighbor to the north is also going to be building. He has support us, supporting our proposal to change what's there. And the neighbor across the road as well, I've discussed with him, who has a semi. Actually, it's referred to more as a duplex. It's a rental that exists, has existed for a significant amount of time, like he's lived there for over 20 years. And he's renting one side and using another. So we're trying to keep within what the community is looking for. In that respect, that's what made our decision, instead of renovating the existing property. It's in very, very good shape.
Thank you.
One comment through you to Mr. Chair. I did check out the property and, on a site visit, and do see, of course, with the garage and some of the property looks in poor condition, but just to point out the comment about grow up, we know that the old Hotel Aurora had some quite bad history, and we see that the people that are renovating that are dealing with the existing structure. So just wanted to make that point.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I don't want to force the committee to comment, but I think it's because we're not actually passing any resolutions. It's basically your comments will go on record and help, formulate staff's report to council. If you have a view one way or another, I think it's beneficial to staff. Me sitting here as a counselor, it's beneficial to me when I'm sitting at the other table with the other hat to better understand the position of the committee. I'm not forcing you to, and you can stay neutral, and that's perfectly fine as well. But I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I was surprised with the information and Bob brought forward in the regards to the value of the property based on, as we say, who lived there. And based on the area, I was again surprised to see that we have nothing on that. Is there any way that we could work on that through, either through staff, or maybe council could help us, edge that along to get some information? I mean, I know from just the past few years, I've dove into some of our history to find out, and was shocked to find out some of the information that we didn't know. The Petch House is a prime example. I'm sitting on information right now. We know there was a big battle on Petch House. It's not from Aurora, it's still everything. I've got it so connected to Aurora now, it'd make everybody's head spin. And how many years has it been since we talked about the Petch House? So if we, could get some more information, I think that would be wonderful.
For sure. And through you, Mr. Chair, I think before we take any report to general committee, we can require a title search be done to more effectively review that history.
No, go ahead. I'm learning the protocol.
Through you, Mr. Chair, is it possible to bring this back to its original glory by renovation, and therefore it could be a family dwelling and still, remain as it was as part of the history, rather than turn it into two semi units? I forget the quote that was made, but it was two semi units or something.
I don't know who would answer that, other than I suspect yes, if you put some money into it and desire, for sure you could. That's definitely that's not what's before us, but yeah.
No, but it's just a thought that if the designation stayed, and if there was enough interest that if it could be renovated back to its original glory, as it were, which I've seen this happen before, then rather than demolish it and put two units in, close like semi-detached units, bring this back to what it used to be like.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On my site visit, and I apologize, I forget the address, but at the corner of Metcalf and Well Street, where the White Bowman House is, very next to it, I believe it might be 50. No, it probably be 51 or somewhere in there, is a similar brick home that has been, the front is being preserved, and addition built on the rear. One of my thoughts was when, thinking about this being a dwelling for, a couple of families, is there's a lot of need for housing in Aurora, including rental units. I couldn't see why this property couldn't be the front. And the addition built on the rear, there's already an existing, it goes back. We know how big the property is beside it, so I don't think it would be hard conforming a build on the back to something as large as that. But rather than building, I'm thinking preserve and, balance, I guess is the word that I like to call it. Trying to appease the people who want to obviously invest and appease to the heritage of the area.
Thank you. Any other guests?
Through you,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, is that right?
Yep.
I've been doing a lot of work with the city of Richmond Hill and their heritage buildings through research projects and such with my students. And what I've learned is that these properties that are often in disrepair do still have historical significance. And I think the challenge is to find a balance between maintaining their historical significance, but also bringing them into the 21st century. And I think that's a very difficult challenge, but I think it has to start with understanding who live there. I think that's really essential. And I know that the local historian at the archives in Richmond Hill, he's very well versed in all things history in Aurora and Richmond Hill and surrounding areas. There are very old maps with plan numbers and lot numbers, et cetera. So I don't think that information would be difficult to locate. But I think it's imperative that if we want to maintain the integrity of something that is still historically significant, but bring it into the modern age, I think we have to do due diligence. I think that's part of it.
And I think we'll be doing as much as we
Yeah.
can. Any other comments, questions? Sure.
About 5 years ago, Adam, the house to the south was also on the heritage list, correct? And that was
Yes.
delisted,
32, I want to say.
right? And they built this monstrosity of a bungalow on there, so. Not sure. That had any significance or how far that got with. Precedent, right?
How long ago?
17, maybe?
I can speak to that.
It's fairly new, right next door to the
Through
south.
you, Mr. Chair, of course, every property is unique. Obviously, ownership would be unique, characteristic style would be unique. So we can't really compare, it's not an apples to apples comparison, that being said, but you are right in the sense that it is the neighboring property, and that is an example of intent or infill development.
Just in along with what Dave was suggesting, I just can't, I can picture the houses. I'm just not sure if it's on the other side of Wells Street, so on the east side and between, I don't know if it's between Metcalf and Harrison or between Harrison and Connaught. There are at least two other Edwardian style homes with massive additions on the back.
Yep.
But they're on the back. And Adam, I'm not sure if you have contact information for Jackie Stewart, a local historian. If not, I can help.
She knows everything.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, this particular property is that the lot is much wider than the house. And it seems a reasonable response. You have a house that's not in the best shape. And preventing additional housing is the bonus. And the borough that to make use of that land makes sense.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. So basically, staff will generate a report, it'll come to the general committee at council, and council will discuss, debate the proposal. Thank you.
Does that committee have any public input?
Absolutely, that's a public meeting. General Committee of Council. Thank you.
Thank you. It's like the council.
Yeah. We have no information items. New business. Does anyone on the committee have any new business they'd like to share? Questions or bring to our attention?
Bob, were you gonna say something? Cause
I'm not going to say from what I think you're going to speak of, but it'd be nice if Adam was in the room. Yeah.
Anyone want to speak that doesn't have to have Adam in the room?
I think Adam should be in. the
Okay,
room for
all right.
what I have to say also.
You school teacher.
I'm a department head, yeah. Canadian and World School. It used to be called Jean Vanier, and now it's called Our Lady Queen of the World in Richmond Hill.
Okay.
It's that
Oh,
baby
yeah,
Morgan
baby.
Woods. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'm a retired high school math teacher, department head.
So how far
From which?
I don't know what.
I retired from Williams in Aurora,
Oh, okay.
but I've taught at a variety.
So do you know when this agenda will be on council?
Yeah, yeah. Very good.
We're doing some in-depth research on that history.
New business. so
Yeah.
Questions that you might.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Um, So I don't know a lot about Bill 23, and that's not necessarily up to you to tell me. But from what I gather I don't think I gathered it from our agenda. I think I gathered it because Jeff shared with me a couple of weeks ago the general committee's agenda. And I'm kind of hugely concerned about the 287 other properties on the heritage list that may be worthy of designation and 20 months left in which to take action. So we used to have, as you already know, a subcommittee that would do the evaluations, but the consultants were hired to kind of do all of that anyhow. So I don't know if it's up to this committee to bring some of the 287 properties forward, or if you would be doing that. I don't know, 50 every meeting or something, because we only meet every 2 months instead of monthly. So it's just it'd be a shame to lose all of them. Not that they're necessarily all worthy of designation, but Vanessa's comment was they are. But maybe we'd be better judges if we had a little bit more sense of how to use the new criteria to do the evaluation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, what's the plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, first and foremost, note taken about understanding Ontario Regulation 906, and we can definitely do, a session on that. And about Bill 23, it's a wrench to every municipality across the province. Like, quite honestly, this is unheard of. It's honestly a shock to all heritage registers across the province. I'll say that first and foremost. So effectively, you did summarize it correctly. 287 currently listed properties will be removed by virtue of the province's decision through Bill 23, effective January 1st, 2025. I know, based on what I've heard from other municipalities, are that 287 is a large number, and you're right about the feasibility of designating all 287 of them, right? It's daunting, but we will at the very least be inventorying all these properties that even today existed on them and monitoring them even after January 1st, 2025. Some municipalities, because we're all going through this together, have even proposed the idea of, yes, you have this current heritage register, but then you also have a database of all these other properties. So that record isn't lost, which is very important. And that is something we will be committed to doing. In terms of next steps for these 287, the committee at their discretion can recommend X number as a next batch of priority if they so choose. That is something that we can look at. And quite honestly, that's what Bill 23 has put us into.
Thank you, Mr. I passed on to Dave. John may still have, but the consultant shared with the committee last term, or the subcommittee, the steering committee, all of these evaluations, and I don't know if individual members would benefit from having that. I don't do as well by seeing a whole lot of street addresses, but there might be some outstanding properties that would be easy to peg for designation. Then again, I didn't listen to the last GC meeting, but I read the Auroran. I was bothered by council's feelings of, well, if you complain, okay, we'll take you off the list. If it's that easy to undo a potential designation, just because someone thinks that it's a problem. For example, my house insurance people, they don't know I live in a heritage district. It hasn't affected my house insurance. I don't know why it would affect anybody's house insurance. It's not something that I got asked or get asked annually. Has your house been designated? That fear, I think, is a silly fear. And I think you can find as many people that would support designation as not in terms of real estate agents. I don't know. I had a phone call today from one, in fact. And I said I lived in a heritage district, and he was telling me how lucky I was. So I hope we can do something with the 287, and I'm just not sure if you need to have a number from us or pick some we pick some properties for you to bring forward, or we'll just leave it in your hands and get excited at our next meeting.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think our next meeting in July, this can be the main topic of discussion. Assuming obviously we may have our standard batch of heritage permits as well, but I can certainly share those property sheets similar to what was shared with 28 Wells when we reviewed that, or that was up on the screen previously too. That can be a first step, of course, for these new committee members. And then come July, you know, we can even just have a discussion at that point about which properties want to be prioritized.
Any other comments? I think.
Oh, sorry. I want to like agree with Bob 100% with what he's saying. And the 287 properties, we got our work cut out for us. And that's one thing I want to bring up under when I speak under new businesses.
This is new business.
Pardon?
This is new business.
Okay, yeah. So in regards to the, the 270 properties, like we're not going to win every heritage battle, obviously, but I can say that I learned a lot tonight from this presentation and what I've done already, going out into the community and doing site visits and looking at other locations. I walked down Mosley Street and I went, you know what, this is what I like to see, where we have some really amazing, eloquent heritage buildings and some new builds, and there's balance and consistency throughout. You don't go new, old. You still feel like you're back in 1800. And I really don't want to see this. Well, sorry, some of it troubled me tonight, but on that note, with the 287 properties and some of the things I'm going to talk about on new business here, under our terms of reference right now, things are changed to we meet every 60 days. With Bill 23 and our, like you said, a wrench, our backs against the wall in a lot of ways. Based on some of the things I talked to Adam this week, I'm glad to you're back. I was excited how we had some things like doors open, really taking off, and the committee was getting involved more in education. I'd love to see the committee really move towards that. That's on our terms of reference. Advocacy, awareness, education. I would like to make a motion that our Heritage Committee moves back. The terms of reference are changed. We move to every 30 days. It's difficult when a property owner has, they receive an answer within 90 days. We meet within only 2/3 of that, every 60. Doesn't really put us in a good position. And I really do believe that this year we've gone through COVID. We lost a lot of, like I said, things like Doors Open and a lot of events and things. I really think this committee can do a bang up job in bringing up awareness on our wonderful heritage, where there's still a story to be told. But we need time. The most valuable thing that we have is time. And a heritage every 2 months, I don't think that's good use of our time. So I'd like to put that motion.
We can do motions, but just first, just get a sense of why we did it every 60 days and not monthly, okay. Do you know why?
Well, I do know that up until last term, it was monthly.
Yeah.
Even through the summer. But we would cancel a meeting if there was no reason.
Yes.
So you put it in your calendar for monthly, but was it the second Monday? Second Monday of the month, I think. Oh, but this is the first Monday. First Monday. Might have been the second.
Second Monday of the month is AHS.
Okay, well, first Monday of the month, but I don't really know why last term's council changed things. I will point out, just since I'm
Sorry, when did it change?
just last term.
But this is the first.
Last term,
It was
we
six
went every 2 months.
Oh,
And there were some issues doing that, and there were some meetings that we had at least once or twice meetings worth added on because property owners needed decisions made more quickly, or council would have appreciated heritage feedback more readily. Like the 60, 90-day concerns. I would rather put it on my calendar on a monthly basis and cancel it if there was not enough to talk about. But in terms of reference, I pointed out to the clerk a week or two ago, I think I copied Adam. It also says we're not supposed to meet in July, August, or January. So I said, well, our next meeting is in July. He said he would be changing the terms of reference to reflect that. So it sounds like changes to terms of reference are possible.
okay. We can't move that here as a committee. However, can you leave it with me? I'll commit that I will bring it to council and I will advocate to have it on a monthly basis. And then council can make that decision to do that or not. And we'll seek advice from staff on if there's any issues doing that, we'll hear that, but I'll commit to bringing that to me.
And just a comment through Mr. Chair, as to changing terms of reference, I'm aware that changes happen very, very quickly to a committee recently to change the chair in the terms of reference. I understand. I believe it was the awards and it happened quite quickly. I could be wrong. I stand corrected, but I do believe that terms of reference were changed quite quickly to do with that committee. So changing ours wouldn't be too hard then. There's precedent. So I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. May I continue?
Of course you can.
Perfect. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I again do believe we are going to be a busy committee. I was rather surprised to see that there is a committee, the Property Standards Committee. It was a I don't know what you call it, per diem remuneration, an amount allocated per meeting for that committee. And I'm wondering why that, maybe you can answer, Mr. Chair, as a council member, why that committee, it was important to that committee, but not other committees, for example, like the Heritage Committee, when we do a lot of extensive work in considering site visits and et cetera, et cetera.
So I think I know, and if I'm wrong, someone will correct me, or I can find out the right answer. But so that prior to that committee, this is the first time we had that. It was combined with the Committee of Adjustment. They would act on both of those roles, if I'm not mistaken, and the tribunal. So they would have 3 roles, and those have always been paid positions. So I guess the rationale, the thinking was or separating the two, but the roles and responsibilities and what those committees are doing are the same as if they were one. They've been separated.
I respectfully asked it because I had a citizen ask me that, so I said, well, I'll use the Heritage Committee. I mean, education right there, so thank you.
You should be paid.
Yeah, really. Well, okay, the next thing I wanted to bring forward was, and I spoke to Adam about this. Metrolinx gets a big 8 thumbs up for the renovations, I think, on the train station. To me, it looks absolutely stunning. I've visited several times. I love how you're inside, and I think it's, you know, it kind of seems like you're standing in the train station back in when it first arrived from Toronto. The only thing that caught my attention, which I thought that we really have to address this as a committee, the wood plaque looks horrible. It's faded. You can't read the name. Beautiful new building and this horrible plaque. So if we could, I think it'd be wonderful if we could do an inventory of the wood plaques, especially, and get those freshened up and replaced, and maybe starting with the train station and work through the, you know, around the Well Street area and just blow it out in the community and get those all spruced up if we have the budget for that. So
Okay, they've heard you. I think I feel like I have to go through, and maybe some of you already know, how the committee is going to operate, because it's not to my liking, but it is what it is. And some of you who've been on will know this. We have very fixed motions on the floor, as I've already mentioned. We can't put any new motions on the floor. We can't give direction to staff, and certainly we can't give direction to council. We can speak about what we like. And staff will take those concerns and address them as they see fit. It's awkward. I'm not a big fan of it. But that's what it is right now. And I suspect it's the same. It's not changed from previous term. Maybe a couple terms ago, it was very different.
Yeah.
The committees had much more authority in terms of moving an agenda forward. Council would also ultimately have the final say, but we're not in that situation. That was changed a number of years ago. I just want to be clear on how, maybe when you were last on the committee, it was that way. It isn't anymore.
So thank you for that, because it kind of just played in exactly what I was doing. I'm acting as if I was on the committee in 2010 and 2014. And when I read the terms of reference, I was troubled by it, because I've spoken to a few council members and I was honored to hear their response. They said, we want to hear the committee. We want to hear their recommendations. We want their input. We don't know about one of them said, I don't know about Aurora. I don't know about its history. And there is so much knowledge on this committee. I don't think the committee serves its purpose or its value making comments. I just don't. And Mr. Chair, you already said it's frustrating. Yeah, it is. It's very frustrating. I've spoken to Adam about it. History. We preserve history. I'd like to see history repeat itself. The terms of reference, I think, need to be changed. I think we need to go back to where this committee has that knowledge, power, and respect that it deserves. Like I said, we have a lot of knowledge in this room, and John, Bob is just unbelievable, and great staff. So we need to utilize that.
And yourself.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I have a question from you, Mr. Chair. Are all municipalities governed by the same set of rules? So if Newmarket has a Heritage Advisory Committee, do they have to follow the same rules as we've been given to follow? So in other words, if we're only allowed to make comments, and then it's captured on the minutes, and then it's given to staff who make recommendations to the council, that's all the council gets. There's nothing else. So it's kind of boiled down, as it were, to a point of where it's one of the agenda items. And I can't imagine that council members are conversant with everything, and therefore do they come up with a decision based upon a wider set of knowledge, or do they just go with the little bit that they've been given by staff? I'm not saying that staff doesn't do a great job, but if, for example, we can come up with recommendations, then it might be a different way that the council would review and say, the Heritage Advisory Committee has given us this recommendation. Staff has come along and done the same thing from their perspective. And perhaps they might come up with a different result as a, because of that. That's just a question.
So I think there's two questions there. First, what other municipalities do?
Yes.
And I don't know. I don't know what others do. We can certainly, I don't know, Linda, if you know or not, we can find out what, Bob probably knows.
Well, it won't answer that specifically, but I'll just butt in. There was an online presentation for orientation to members of committees. And the Integrity Commissioner had a series of slides. And one of those slides, and I don't have my notes, but I did have the page number written down at one point, 29, spoke about committees making recommendations to council. And then I asked at the end of the clerk, just for clarification, are we now allowed to make recommendations? And he said no comments. Could I just point out to Kevin and Cynthia that just last term is when council, just last term was when we as advisory committees were restricted to just making comments. Prior to last term, we could make a recommendation for council's consideration so that we would, among ourselves, come up with what the majority felt. Council didn't have to follow it, but I think part of the reason it disappeared was maybe some councillors felt they needed to follow it or felt pressure or something. I'm not sure, but sorry.
Yeah. So I don't know, but we can certainly find out what general practice is amongst other municipalities. In terms of your second question on, and I guess me specifically, I can only speak for myself in terms of what I do when I see these before council. I actually review these because they're all online. I review what the committee members say. If I can't do that, I'll rely on the member of council that is on that committee to tell us, give us a sense of what the committee's feelings were, because there are no written recommendations from the committee. I think it's good practice for all of them to do that. So short of a written, I can get a sense. That's why I said before, if you have an opinion, it's very good to communicate it because it's helpful later on, when we're reviewing something comes before council, we can see what your perspective was. That answers your question.
And I thought that if the Integrity Commissioner is saying this, then it must be kind of provincially understood that committees make recommendations.
Yeah, there's probably other committees that do it.
Yeah.
I suspect.
Yeah.
In terms of why it changed, I think it was when I was off council, but I'm not saying that made a difference, but it was, I got the feeling that council members only felt pressured, maybe not so much that, but you really had to pay attention to those committee minutes because they're before you. And basically you're accepting everything that the committee was putting forward. You would, to change it, you would have to go in, pull those minutes, look at each resolution and say, no, I don't agree with that. And correct me if I'm wrong. I remember we had to be very specific and look at each committee and all the minutes and all the resolutions that the committees were bringing forward. It was a bit of an onerous task, but you did your work and you made sure you understood what what the committees were bringing forward to council and what you were gonna agree to or not agree to. That's a big difference from now.
If I may ask a question then, through Mr. Chair. So if I'm understanding correctly, then I'm sorry, can you remind me of your name again?
David.
David. So when you were speaking about education as being part of the mandate of this group, that if we as a group decided that that's something that was a priority, we can only recommend that we do that.
Well, as chair, I mean, I can also help guide the agenda, and if that's something that the committee wants to do, for sure, we can get on an agenda and we discuss it, and it's more any direction,
About specific issues.
specific issues that we give to council, we can't do that.
Thank you.
Any other new business?
Yeah, just to, I'll go with the positive one first. Under making suggestions, I spoke to Adam. We know with COVID changed things, and we know with the province, it seems, I don't know what a lot of things are going to come back, but this committee had a lot of success with doors open. And I would really, really love to see, as a suggestion, that we look into bringing that excitement and, heritage awareness, et cetera, back. I recently spoke to a member of the BIA, it's called Library Board, I think now you know who it is now. And we talked about one of the events that happened at Doors Open, which was stellar, and it had to do with the Scarborough Model Railroaders and the excitement of the youth and the adults reliving the youth. And we talked about that and said, that could be really interesting with our train heritage and Metro Links, spending all the money on the station and making it look great. And we went, how could we build that around the downtown area, that whole part of Aurora, and build an experience around our train history? Could it be done? And we had a meeting about it, and I talked to Adam about it. We checked all off the boxes and went, wow, we could probably get the library and the BIA and the businesses and everybody involved. And on this one theme, actually, if they're not going to have doors open, and maybe we have open doors, Aurora, and build up from there. So I just wanted to know that, or just say that, I have a very big passion for bringing that back. If it's possible, the committee, if you as the council member and chair, maybe you can, light a fire. The other thing I'll say is lighting a fire. I'll close with the only negative point I'm going to make. I'm very unhappy as a committee member leading up to this meeting. And I followed the events leading up to the Fleury home that got fire, and in addition, we all know it was a very passionate meeting, but I viewed the council meeting several times and was very, very troubled by some of the comments that were made. One of them in particular, and I'm not going to use an exact quote, but it was in reference to we just overruled the Heritage Committee. And I have that tape of that.
Overrule?
We could just overrule the Heritage Committee. Bob, am I getting that right? Basically, the comment.
Okay, so where are we gonna go with this?
So my point is, when I see that the committee has been whittled down to a nub, basically with the meetings being cut, and we make comments. And by some comments at council, I don't think people are taking. I don't think we're valued. I really don't. I, as a committee member, after watching the council meeting and all this, I wonder why am I here?
Hey, David,
it's our first meeting. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I'll just jump in, David, because that stuck with me as well. And I actually reconsidered joining this committee when I heard that. And I think the exact comment was along the lines of, doesn't matter what the Heritage Committee does, we're just going to vote against it anyways. And to hear that, I heard that exact comment, and I it made me reconsider actually being part of this committee and the importance that we have in the town. So it's a valid concern, and I think it's felt by others as well, that what we do, what we recommend, it's non-binding. They're opinions that we have. We have some experts around the table. I look at the individuals around the table. They're experts who know heritage, they know the community, they know the importance of it. And frankly, to hear comments like that and to see votes that take place that really, disregard what the Heritage Committee does and the opinions that it could provide makes you wonder at times what the importance of this committee actually is.
Well, I'm hopeful that this is our first meeting and there's a bit of a learning curve, even for me. This is my first time on this committee. And notwithstanding some of the stuff that happened there, I don't share that view that this committee isn't being respected or that isn't going to be looked at as something valuable to the community. I hope you can leave it with me to make sure that this committee is of value to the best of its ability under the current regime. And we're going to work as best we can within that. We can tweak it wherever we can. Number of meetings, I don't have an issue with that. I don't think council members will have an issue with that. But I don't want you leaving here thinking, any of you leaving here thinking that you're not valued or that your opinion doesn't matter. Because that couldn't be farther from the truth, at least from where I sit.
Thank you, Jeff, by the way.
John?
I have a comment, and that is the very fact that you are here as a member of the council and you're listening to what's going on and you will take it back to the council. So therefore you could be our mouthpiece and our champion. And if the others haven't really read the background, you go there. And if there's a discussion, you at least can stand up and say, wait a minute, this is what happened. And this is what I believe we should do, what you believe you should do. So I believe it's very valuable that you are the chair.
Yeah, and just so there's clarity around that. And I will do that. I will communicate what transpired at the meeting, should I be asked. At the same time, I hope you can appreciate that I will have my own opinions and bring them to the council table. They may or may not be in line with what the committee says, but I will, without question, do my best to communicate what you've discussed. I view these committees as your committees. To be honest, I sit here as a facilitator. And if you notice, I didn't comment on reports, and I'm not going to. I'm going to make sure you have a chance to voice your opinions. That's the way I want to run this committee. It's not mine, it's yours. I'm just facilitating it because it's important to me, and I know the members of council, that we hear your perspectives on these issues, serious issues. And that's how I view this committee.
Is there a reason why? I think it's the first term, might not be the first term, but typically there's 2 council members on the committee. Were you the only one expressing any interest, or is there a rule?
No, I think because we have so many, I actually sit on 5. There's a few that it's only 1 council member. There's some that are duplicated, I think.
So if we switch to monthly, you'd still be available?
Yes, I will. If I'm not, we have a vice chair.
And it's new this term that the council member is the chair, but
Yes.
I understand that's the case for all the committees. So.
That's right.
And that's fine. I was just in terms of being bothered. Here's a quote from the Auroran, whether it's accurate. From a council member. I'm against designating these homes and any homes that come to this council, and I think I'd be consistent with that regardless of the circumstances. That was with respect to the 8 people that didn't want the property designated. I was surprised to read that. I thought that a council member would at least be open to the circumstances. I'm not asking for anything, any comments from yourself. Just in terms of negativeness, that was from me. But in terms of positiveness, thanks for being here. And I know you're new to this committee. But you're not new to council, and I'm excited of what's ahead of us.
So to segue what Bob said, you throw that big positive in at the end, taking all what we just experienced, I wasn't happy about the Aurora and I wasn't happy with what Jeff and I said. But then I look again at the terms of reference, I say, okay, if we've got all this stuff that we're up against. What is in there that we can light the fire under Aurorans and guests that come into our community that we have cool history? And that's that education and awareness and advocacy part, which we need to turn it up a notch. So people don't have these attitudes about heritage isn't valuable. Like, that's what I'm trying to throw that passionate, positive out there, that's what we need to do.
So I can't bring the wealth of experience that all of you have because I don't have it. But I am a career educator and I've done a lot of work in local history. And I've won the Governor General's Award for local history. So I have a bit of experience in that area. And I can tell you that thank you. There's a lot of opportunity to do some incredible work. And the key is young people. They are keen, they're interested. I think that what I've learned is that if we create opportunities to show them how rich the local history is, that will translate into many different benefits across Aurora and beyond. Because I think what I'm seeing, at least from my perspective as a historian, is that older generations stop caring about history when they're not made to care about it as young people. And so some of this, what you just read from the paper, I come up against it all the time with board personnel and various other people. When young people are made to care about their local community and when they're given an opportunity to see how very interesting their local history is, that change, it's not a trickle down effect, it's a trickle up effect, if that makes sense. So I think there's lots of ways that we can engage young people and they in turn will engage the rest of the community. Because they have something that I certainly don't have, which is unlimited amounts of energy. So I think that's a linchpin in us trying to achieve this passion, because there's a lot to be passionate about. Just when you were speaking, David, about the Doors Open and various other projects, something just sort of reminded me, there's a project called Ontario Heritage Fair Association. So that's something that I've been kind of dabbling and learning more about recently because of the work that I'm doing with the city of Richmond Hill with my students. So again, I'm new to this. I don't know what the scope of this committee is able to be, but if that's something that, people are interested in learning more about, or maybe even in planning something, I can't necessarily speak about the architectural details of buildings, but I can definitely plan projects to get young people involved. And I think that they are definitely a key to re-energizing interest in local history. So that's something I can bring to the table. If that's something that people are interested in within our scope, great. If it's not, then just tell me to shut up and I will.
That's fantastic. Be careful what you offer up.
No, I know, I offer it knowing what it turns into, but it's important to me. So, and that's what I can offer.
Isn't that the truth? Because you can tear down a building, but when you tell the child this story and that child tells that story, you can't tear that down.
Well, and that's why I asked the question about who lived in that house, because I think I was saying to Bob. So my students right now are working on a local history project with the city of Richmond Hill. They've all selected one plan number and one lot, and they're doing like intense research on that property from 1914 to the present, because it's a grade 10 Canadian history class. And they are doing postgraduate university level research using all kinds of primary sources, title searches, all these documents that we create over the time during which we live anywhere. And so now they know that there's stories to these properties. And so even though 28 Wells Street might have been a grow up and might look totally torn, like run down and uncared for, it has a story. And I think what you said was important. How do we decide what's significant and whose stories are significant? And we don't know that unless we know whose stories they are. So I think that engaging the young people is really, really key. And I think when that happens, those young people become voters and those young people get engaged with their community. And I think that will in many ways change the opinion of a lot of other community members, whether they're councillors or not. So I think that
Based on the last stats, we need voters.
yes, very badly.
Any other new business? love the free flow of this. As long as
Sorry,
time,
I'm
time,
still trying to learn.
as long as
so-
time permits, I think it's very valuable, so. Any other last? No.
I just want to say lastly, I just, no, I just want to say, has anybody been over to the Joint Ops Center recently?
Where?
The Joint Ops Center, you know, on,
Join up center.
yeah, on
The
industrial.
joint, yes, yeah, with the.
In the
safe house.
foyer, yeah.
A month ago?
There's an example right there. Is, I mean, yeah, I know it's the Joint Ops, but I'm going there and I'm going, wow, wouldn't this be cool when Town Square opens to bring this out into, like, I mean, I was floored. You know, and that's, you know, when I get wowed, like seriously, you know, we transfer that into the community in so many different ways in visuals and storytelling and everything. It's just, now we'll be quiet. Thank you for I had a great evening.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Cynthia, I saw you.
What do I say? I
No, it's-
motion pass. No, you decide, you say that.
And Kevin.
I thought I couldn't make motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay. But we can make a motion to adjourn, but we
Yeah.
can't make a motion.
All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Thanks.
Chair.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks again, Joe.
Bye, Kevin.